Morning, children. Today we are going to discuss about another important topic in our what you call syllabus, that is biomolecules. So biomolecules is also most important chapter. Why? Because from this we will get some valuable bits. Okay. So what are the biomolecules? Yesterday we discussed the molecules which are present in the living organisms. Our living beings are called biomolecules. So, for example, here I am given the definition. All the carbon compounds, all the carbon compounds present in the living tissues, all the carbon compounds present in the living tissues are called biomolecules. So, examples of biomolecules: carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Even elements also there. So elemental composition also will be there in the living bodies. So elemental composition, in the sense, you know very well what are the elements. Come on, tell. uh, Hydrogen, carbon. Okay, elemental composition: hydrogen, carbon, silicon. Okay, nitrogen, sulfur, sodium. These all are elemental components are there. So both are present in the this kind of elements are present in the living and non-living. So what is the difference? The complexity and arrangement of molecules in the living is complexity is more, arrangement is more, complexity is more. Okay, arrangement of molecules, arrangement of elements, the complexity is more, but non-living, not that much complexity is there. So how to analysis chemical composition? Take one living tissue. We want to know about the what you called that particular molecules of the body. So what we have to do? We have to take one living tissue, and we should have to grind it, and we should have to acid, one acid, you know very well. What is it? Trichloroacetic acid. That we should have to grind, and we have to filter. So filter soluble are micro. Filter insoluble, in the sense insoluble, in the sense they will be called macro. You know very well. Means the acid insoluble and acid soluble. Acid soluble is micro, like that. Acid insoluble is macro molecules, like that we can divide. So what are the primary metabolites? This is important. So if you want to complete dry, complete composition of living tissue, means you can burn it. You can find out the elements you see. So many what you call sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium. Like that we will see the which one the living tissue materials. Okay, elemental composition also will be there. Now primary metabolites I are going to discuss. Sugars, amino acids, fatty acids, fats and oils, nucleosides and nucleotides. These all are primary metabolites. What is called? Sugars, amino acids, fatty acids, fats and oils, nucleosides and nucleotides. These all are which one? Primary metabolites. Sugars, in the sense, carbohydrates. You know, proteins, fats, okay, oils and nitrogen bases. These all are primary metabolites. The secondary metabolites, in the sense, you know very well, the pigments. Okay, what are the pigments? Like carotenoids, alkaloids, morphine, terpenoids, monoterphenes, monopterins, essential oils, lemongrass oil. Definitely one bit will come, neat bit. Examples: toxins, arbin and resin, drugs, vinblastin, polymeric substances, rubber. So like this, there will be secondary metabolites also there. So primary metabolites and secondary metabolites are there. So first, in this chapter we will discuss, there will be the carbohydrates we will be discuss. First, proteins means amino acids. You know very well, chain of amino acids. So how many types of proteins? Amino acids forms the proteins. What is called? Amino acids together forms the proteins. So amino means one end is amino group, another end is carboxyl group will be there. That's why amino acid will be there. So R group is the major important to decide the nature of the what you called amino acid functional group. So there will be what you called acidic. There are aromatic amino acids, tyrosine, okay, phenylalanine, tryptophan. You know, so many acids are amino acids are there. So like that, based number of amino acids, carboxyl groups, there are acidic. Acidic example, glutamic acid, amino acid. Basic, what you called tyrosine, okay, what you called the phenylalanine, tryptophan, like that. Some examples also they are based upon the R group. Then like that lipids also, you know, number of chains will be more. So saturated, unsaturated. Unsaturated difference what? Double bonds in between the carbohydrates. So like that fatty acids are there. So completely phospholipids are there, attached lipids with the phosphorus. So like that molecules are there in our body. So first one, today we will be discuss about carbohydrates. What are the carbohydrates? Come on, you tell. They are made with carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Okay, so what are the carbohydrates in the sense? First, monosaccharides are there, disaccharides are there, and what you called polysaccharides also there. So what are the monosaccharides? What are the polysaccharides? What are the what you called disaccharides will be discussed now. So first, before going to that, we have to discuss about some micromolecules like molecular weight less than 1000 Dalton. Molecular weight less than 1000 Dalton in the sense micromolecules. They are amino acids, nucleotides, nucleosides. Macromolecules means the found in acid insoluble friction more than 1000 Dalton. They will be called macromolecules like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleus. Okay, so like this, there will be macromolecules. Macromolecules are there. So soluble, acid soluble friction. Acid found in acid insoluble. So what you call acid insoluble friction macromolecules. Come to carbohydrates. First, we will be discuss one by one carbohydrates, proteins, and what you called lipids. One by one, we will be discuss. Okay, children. So first, we have to think once again. All the carbon compounds are means all the carbon compounds which are present in the living tissues are called biomolecules. First plan clear. So even the living tissue have elemental composition. What are those? Like hydrogen, oxygen, chlorine, carbon also. So primary metabolites means which are major for the metabolic activities. First, sugars, amino acids, fatty acids, fats and oils, nucleosides, nucleotides. Secondary metabolites means other than primary metabolites like plants, microorganisms. So they will produce other than primary metabolites. They are called secondary metabolites. Pigments, carotenoids, alkaloids, morphine, pigments, carotenoids, alkaloids, morphine. Definitely one bit will come. Terpenoids, monopterones, essential oils, lemongrass oil, toxins, arbin and resin, drugs, vinblastine, polymeric substances, rubber. So micromolecules and macromolecules. Molecular weight less than 1000 Dalton are called micromolecules. Amino acids, nucleotides, nucleosides. What is nucleotide combination of nitrogen base, sugar, phosphate means nucleotide. Without phosphate, only nitrogen base and sugar is there in the sense nucleoside. Macromolecules found in acid insoluble friction like carbohydrate, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. So carbohydrates. We are going to discuss about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are made with what is the composition of carbohydrates? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So there will be different types of carbohydrates, right? Monosaccharides, okay, disaccharides and polysaccharides. Monosaccharides, disaccharides and polysaccharides. So first, what is the examples of monosaccharides? That one we will be discuss. So first one, what is the ratio of carbohydrates? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So there will be carbohydrates ratio 1:2:1. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So if single sugar is there, single glucose is there, that will be called monosaccharides, glucose. Oligosaccharides means 2 units. Okay, monosaccharides linked 2 or more than 2. Linked in the sense they are called oligosaccharides. Examples, maltose. And polysaccharides means many monosaccharides linked to form polysaccharides. So carbohydrates are divided into how many types? Monosaccharides, 1 glucose. Oligosaccharides, 2 or more than 2. Polysaccharides, more. Okay, they are called oligosaccharides, maltose. Okay, and polysaccharides, starch, glycogen, and cellulose. Come on, what is the use of different types of what you called this polysaccharides and monosaccharides. Monosaccharides are helpful for the production of sweet, okay, milk sweet, fructose, galactose, okay, monosaccharide, fructose, galactose, glucose, like that. Oligosaccharides, okay, germinating seeds, okay, sugar, sucrose, lactose, raffinose, they are present oligosaccharides. Again I am telling, monosaccharides, glucose, fructose, galactose. Oligosaccharides, sucrose, lactose, raffinose. Polysaccharides, starch, glycogen, cellulose, and chitin, like that. So these all are very useful for they will perform the different types of functions. Come on, what are the functions of polysaccharides? Polysaccharides, okay, what is the functions of in our diet? So energy we are getting or not? That is the main the glucose molecule helpful for the production of energy. And in our liver, very important need bit. So in our liver, what is the stored glucose? In the form of glycogen, need bit, glycogen in our liver. The stored carbohydrate is glycogen will be there. Okay, so like that the important functions are there. Next, so sweetest than all sugars, what? So d-fructose, okay, d-fructose is a sweetest fructose or levulose. What is the sweetest sugar compared with all levulose? Very important need bit. Sweetest sugar, that is called levulose. Next, another important one. So they will be helpful for the making of agar agar, some galactose helpful to agar agar medium is there, no, that one. And galactosidins are galactose occur in the brain and nervous tissue. So in our brain, what is the carbohydrate? Galactose will be there, very important bit in the brain. Galactose will be there. So next one, there will be different types of sugars. I said table sugar, general points. Table sugar is called sucrose, maltose, malt sugar, lactose, milk sugar, glycogen, very important need bit, animal starch. Okay, like this the what you called the carbohydrates are there. Okay, the next important thing is the functions of the carbohydrates. Just now I said no, glycogen. Okay, glycogen is helpful for what you call stored. It is a stored carbohydrate. It will give energy. So come to agar agar. Okay, glucons. These all are complex carbohydrates. Also will be there. Now, what is the glycoside? How the carbohydrate? See, for example, C6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this, and H, OH, like this is there or not? That structure you know very well. So the chain structure and what you called the diagrammatic structure will be there or not? That so like this. Okay, like this, the structures are there, right? So like this structure. How these all are binding? The carbon and hydrogen mainly binding with which bond? So that is glycosidic bond. Okay, that is one. Glycosidic bonds are there to bind the what you called carbon and OH group. Okay, carbon and hydrogen OH group is binding with which one? Glycosidic bonds. Okay, so that is also important point. How the carbon and OH groups are binding each other means because of the glycosidic bonds. What is that? Glycosidic bonds. So this is about the information about carbohydrates. Okay, so starch. So for example, some starch, what is the use? It's a storage of reserve food. Glycogen, animal food. What you called next, pectin, plant cell wall, it is there. Even lignin also cell wall. Okay, like that. Chitin, it is the exoskeleton of cockroaches, like that. These all are what? Nothing but what? Carbohydrates. What are those? Starch is carbohydrate, glycogen is a carbohydrate, inulin is a carbohydrate, cellulose is a carbohydrate. Okay, chitin is a carbohydrate. So heparin, anticoagulant is there or not? That is also polysaccharide carbohydrate, anticoagulant polysaccharide, heparin. Like that, different types of carbohydrates are there in our body, and they will perform the very important functions. Okay, what's the ratio of carbohydrate and oxygen? Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen is there. So next another important macromolecules. What are those? Proteins. Proteins, you know, they are chain of amino acids. Proteins means what? The term protein was first coined by the term protein first coined by Berzelius. Who coined the protein? Berzelius in 1837. Berzelius 1837. Mulder in 1838. Two togetherly produced the term protein. Protein we are daily hearing, right? So who given that protein term? The scientist Berzelius 1837 and Mulder in 1838. So what are the proteins? How can you define the protein? So protein is amino acid chain. 300 amino acids occur. So approximately 300 amino acids in nature, but only 20. In nature, how many amino acids are there? 300 are there. 300 amino acids. But only 20 amino acid only making the different varieties of proteins. So 20 amino acids only making the proteins. Proteins are polymers of amino acids. What are the proteins? Proteins are polymers of amino acids. So in our body, what are the proteins examples? So hormones are the proteins. Next, enzymes are the proteins. Next, antibodies, immunoglobulins are the proteins. Like that, different proteins performs the different functions in our body. So there are amino acids, right? Amino acids joined together by which bond again? There will be one more bond, amino acid peptide bond, called peptide bond. So there will be three types of nearly four structures are there. Four types of structures will be there in the proteins: primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, quaternary structure. Like that, there will be there, and that also will be discussed in the next class. Okay, children. So like this, the proteins are there. Okay, what are the need bits in this concept? Examples of pigments. Examples of secondary metabolites, pigments. The pigments example, carotenoids. Other than the primary metabolites also, the microbes, plants produces, fungus produces the secondary metabolites. Examples of secondary metabolites, number one, pigments. The which kind of pigments? Examples, so many are there, but for convenient point of view, I'm telling some examples, but you must read the NCERT and other reference books, and you have to gain the more pigment examples. Okay, given in the textbook also you should find out. Pigments, carotenoids. Example of pigments, need bit, carotenoids. Second one is alkaloids, called morphine. Alkaloids is morphine. Next, terpenoids, monoterpenes, monopterans, essential oil, lemon grass oil, toxins, harpin, resin, drugs, vinblastine, polymeric substances. Example, rubber. So any bit will come in the need. Next, what is the animal starch? Or animal body consists of which kind of starch? That is also important. The animal starch is nothing but what? Glycogen. That is the another need bit. Okay. Next, what are the biomacromolecules? Biomacromolecules. What is the criteria? More than 1000 Daltons. The molecular weight is more than 1000 Daltons are there, in the sense they will be called macromolecules. And what is the ratio of the carbohydrate? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen in the carbohydrates. 1:2:1. Okay. What is the what you call bonds between the carbon and OH group? Okay, that is glycosidic bonds. Next, what is the oligosaccharide? Combination of glucose and plus glucose, means two glucose molecules, more than two also join linked together, in the sense such kind of carbohydrates are called oligosaccharides. Next, what is the example for what is called the stable sugar? Sucrose. Which one is called maltose sugar? Maltose. Which one is called milk sugar? Lactose. Animal starch, glycogen. So like that, the neat bits are there in this particular video. So who given the term proteins? Berzelius and Mulder So they given the protein terms. Polypeptide protein is a polypeptide of amino acids. In nature 300 amino acids are there, but only 20 amino acid they are using for what you called identified in the formation of proteins.